Good morning, students. So today I will be discussing in connection with a very important chapter, that is constructional features of CNC machines. So in that NC and CNC machines we have discussed in the previous session. So today we are basically concentrating on this particular concept, that is CNC machines or construction of CNC machines actually it is. So before I begin with today's session, we need to understand that whatever the construction of the CNC machine is there, that construction of CNC machines are going to differ completely from that of conventional machine tools. Means the machine tools which are used for the manual production, okay, that is totally different, and the construction of the CNC machines is also different. And before I begin with this, you need to understand that you require to concentrate more on this particular chapter, because more weightage of marks is there for the chapter number 3, which I am going to start with. And in every session almost I have also attached the notes, and even you can download directly from the Anthropic app also. And coming back to the construction features of CNC machines, okay, the basic requirement that we need in industries is to see that the performance level is going to improve. For that purpose, there is a replacement of the manual machines by CNC machines. So whenever we speak about the development of the CNC machines, means as far as the development in the field of electronics is concerned, as we have also discussed in the previous semester, like the mechatronics elements. So whatever the mechatronics elements are there have been used basically for bringing up the technology of automation into the CNC machines, like your sensors, control systems and all that. But the quality and reliability of these CNC machines, okay, basically depends on various machine elements and other subsystems of the machine as a whole. That means the performance of the CNC machines is basically depending on how the mechatronic elements are going to function, perform, okay, and whatever the subsystems are there. Because whenever we want to see that the production is going to be carried out automatically, then utmost care has to be taken as far as the production is concerned. So in the today's session we are going to discuss about the construction of CNC machines. So basically in the construction of CNC machines we are concentrating what are the basic constituents of the CNC machines. That means whenever any type of CNC machine is designed for a particular operation, that means for example CNC turning centers are there, CNC milling machine is there, CNC drilling machine are there, like that. So there are some basic components need to be designed and incorporated to build these CNC machines. So in the today's session I will be discussing in connection with the important concepts like machine structure and how this machine structure is going to be designed, taking into consideration the 3 important types of loads, that is called as a static load, dynamic load and thermal load, with their definition and explanation. Okay, so let me start with the construction of CNC machines. CNC machine is a machine used in the manufacturing industry to produce components for the engineering sector in large numbers quickly. The main objective, let us understand what is the main objective of using the CNC machines which are being replaced by the NC or manual machines. The main objective of using the CNC machines is to see that the products are produced very quickly in large numbers. That is the main objective of using the CNC technology. So as the name of CNC itself, every workmanship of CNC uses a computer system that has been well formed to produce goods that match with precision. Yes, again coming back. So whatever the products that are being produced, they should be of utmost precision, means of utmost quality, utmost surface finish, and the basic requirement of the customer is met very easily by using the CNC machines. In the manufacture of objects or parts such as nuts, bolts, screws and so forth, in all these things also it is used. But as far as the major application is concerned, the CNC machines are also used for the purpose of producing or for the purpose of machining very hard materials. Complex parts can also be produced at ease by using the various interpolation methods, as we have discussed in the previous chapter, like your circular interpolation, parabolic interpolation, linear interpolation, etc. The results achieved will also be the following of these precision measurements. Workmanship using CNC is also certainly more profitable than manual labor. So once we adopt the CNC machines, then it is possible to see that the manual labor is completely replaced by the automation, so that it is possible to see that the industries are going to have more profits, because it is very easy for the industries to run themselves by using the automation technology. So that is the main concept of using the CNC machines in industries. And let us understand what are the constituent parts of the CNC machines. So as I have just informed, that we need to understand that nearly about 10 different elements or the components are being incorporated in any type of CNC machine. So whenever we are going to speak about the CNC machine, then generally we call it like that: CNC milling machine, CNC turning machine, CNC drilling machine, like that. So when these machines are being designed, then it should have these 10 important components being incorporated in general. Okay, let it be used for any purpose of application. So whatever the enlisted parts are there, just I'll be reading and bringing you awareness that these are the important parts that are being used for the design of the CNC machines. The first one is machine structure, which is very, very important. So this machine structure you can compare with your lathe bed. Whenever if you go back to the construction of a lathe machine, you will understand that the lathe bed is going to be the main part of the lathe machine, because it is responsible for supporting your headstock, tailstock, carriage, etc. So that is why, like that, even in case of CNC machines, the machine structure design plays a very important role as far as the function of the CNC is concerned. The next one coming is a guideways. Guideways, as the name itself implies, the guideways are the ways which are perfectly designed for the movement of your tools, turret heads, or even to tailstock, etc., where the movement has to take place properly whenever the machining operation is being carried out. That all these components we are discussing in detail in the subsequent presentations. And feed drives of CNC. So as we know very well that whenever we want to design any type of machine, not only in CNC, so whenever we want to see that the production has to be carried out, then we require to use the application of motors. And whatever the motors are there, those motors we are going to call them as a drive systems. Is a general consideration that they are called as drive systems, because they are responsible to give a certain speed as per the requirement, as per the programming instructions being used in case of CNC machines. So whenever we speak about the feed drives, so these drives are nothing but responsible for giving the movements to the cutting tools. And the motors, whatever that you are going to see here, the motors, the special type of motors like servos, stepper motors are basically used in case of CNC machines, unlike regular motors like induction motors. Okay, so these motors are specially designed to see that, because the accuracy of the movement of these motors decide the production quality. Mechanical transmission system. So as a whole, whenever a CNC machine is designed, we require to use certain mechanisms like rack and pinion mechanism, as we have discussed in many of the belt drives, etc. So all these drives can also be used in case of a CNC machine for the purpose of transmission of the power or the motion. Spindle and spindle bearings. So whatever the quality of the spindles are there and spindle bearings are there being used in CNC machines also play a very important role as far as their performance efficiency is concerned whenever any operation is being carried out. Similarly, measuring systems. So as we know very well that the CNC machines are designed for the purpose of carrying out the production automatically by using the programming instructions. So whenever this is done, the measuring systems play a very important role. So it is concerned with the movement of the cutting tool, okay, and it is also concerned with the rotational speed of the workpiece, which is measured automatically by electronic system in case of CNC machines. Similarly, controls software and operator interface. So whenever any CNC machine is designed, it should have a proper type of a controlling system. Generally, we adopt the closed loop control system and we require to use a software, okay, and also the operator interface. So in connection with the operator interface, we have discussed that the CNC operator should be able to communicate with the CNC machine, the control panel with the keyboard which is provided, okay, which is provided in front of a operator himself, so as to see that he is going to communicate properly with the CNC machine whenever he wanted to control the machine in a proper way, means control the production. The next one is called as a gauging. So gauging is a technology which is used for inspecting the produced components. So whatever the components that are being produced, are they according to the requirements? So that is called as a gauging system. The next one coming is a tool monitoring. There is a built-in system is there where the tool is monitored for the breakage of its cutting edge as well as its performance. So we know one important thing, that whenever any type of cutting tool is used for the purpose of production, okay, after a certain time it loses the efficiency of cutting operation. So the operator is not going to check every time whether the efficiency has gone down or not. So there is a certain measuring, means there is a certain parameter through which it is possible to monitor whether the tool is working properly or not. So such a system is available in case of a CNC machines. So now I have discussed in brief about the 10 important parts. So now in the subsequent presentations we are going in detail in connection with the function of each part one by one. So in the today's session I am going to discuss basically about the machine structure. So just as I have informed you that how a bed is going to act like a supporting element, similarly in case of a CNC machines, the machine structure plays as a main carrying and supporting member. It is the main load carrying and supporting member. It supports the important elements. So what is its function? So whatever the devices which I have informed here, that means starting from the guideways to the tool monitoring system, all these elements, okay, are being supported with the help of a machine structure itself. That is what is need to be understood by you. It is the main load carrying and supporting member. Okay, it supports the important elements and the devices like drives, okay, motors, bearings, mechanical transmission systems designed to withstand both static and dynamic forces. So in all these things we know very well, the machine structure is considered as the main load carrying member. So it is responsible for taking all the loads coming from the drives, okay, motors which are mounted over it, bearings, okay, mechanical transmission system, that is a mechanism which is used and designed to withstand both static and dynamic forces. So if it is going to satisfy all this, then we can say that the machine structure is being designed in a correct way. Actually, in reality, the machine structure is nothing but the overall configuration of a machine. That means what should be its design or what should be its dimensions, so that all decision is taken by the expert design engineers who can decide depending upon the application of a CNC machines. But the basic function of any type of machine structure is to support the elements which I have already mentioned here. So now what are the features of the machine structure? So whenever we are going to speak about the machine structure, okay, so what are its features? The first important feature is it is designed to withstand both static and dynamic load. So we need to understand one by one here, which we are going to discuss in detail. Okay, it is designed to withstand both static and dynamic load. The static load is nothing but the load when no operation is done, but whereas a dynamic load, when there is a operation starts and the cutting forces values are going to change continuously. It should not deform or vibrate beyond the permissible limits. This is very, very important. Okay, the machine structure should be designed in such a way that it should not vibrate whenever any operation is being carried out. Okay, that is the main significance that is to be considered by the design engineers. Maintains geometric accuracy irrespective of the forces. So this is also very, very important. That means the entire the machine structure is going to, of a CNC machine, is going to support all the important elements. So along with this, it should not deform, and at the same time it has to maintain the accuracy with which, that means it should provide, for example, the guides are mounted on the machine structure. So whatever the movement of these slide and slide accuracy is there, that is called the geometric accuracy through which it is made to move. It should be maintained irrespective of the forces that are coming up on the machine structure. All the mounted components remain in corrective relative positions. This is also very, very important feature. That means whatever the components that are being used on the machine structure, it should hold, it should provide the required movement without any difficulty. That means whatever the relative positions are there. Relative positions means what? For example, the motors are made to run continuously. The slides are made to move on the slideways. So all this, whatever the movements are there, they should take place correctly in a proper manner. So that is called as a relative positions. So now, whenever I want to design a machine structure of a CNC machines, it is necessary to consider various design factors. They are called as the basic factors for the design of the machine structure. What is the basic factor? That is called, the first one is called as the static load. The first important is static load. Second one is a dynamic load and thermal load. So that means whenever the design engineers, expert engineers, whenever they want to go for the design of the machine structure, they have to consider these factors. That is, what is the static amount load from a minimum to maximum value, and what about the dynamic load, what about the thermal load. So as the name itself indicates, we are going to discuss in detail about these things. So as you are going to see on the screen very clearly here, we have also shown with the coordinate systems depending upon the movement. One simple CNC machine which is designed, you are going to see there, the static load is developed due to the weights of the slides, workpieces and cutting forces. So why static load is developed? So whatever the structure is there, so this we are all going to call the end, is also called the entire structure only, where there is a tool slide, where this is called as a bridge and these are called as the columns, and this is called as the work table, and this is the workpiece which is to be machined here. So as you are going to see there, static load is developed due to the weights of the slides, workpieces and cutting forces. So whatever the weight of the slides is there, okay, and workpieces, whatever the weight of the workpiece is there and the cutting forces is going to come directly on this particular base, which you are going to see very clearly, because this is responsible for holding these columns as well as this bridge, and as well as this is called as the tool slide, which is carrying certain type of tool and which is made to move, as you are going to see here, X direction as well as Z. So vertical movements is considered as Z-axis and horizontal movements as X-axis, and whatever the movement of the workpiece that you are going to see here, it is called as the Y-axis. Using those configuration, when these movements are going to take place as per the machining operations or as per the programming instructions, the machine structure should be able to sustain the weights of the slides, it should be able to sustain the workpiece weight and also the cutting forces which are going to take place when a particular operation is being carried out. So that is what it is, development of the static load. Okay, so now we need to understand here one important thing, that is machine structure should be designed to withstand static load by the following remedies. So machine structure should be able to design to withstand static load. That means what? It should be able to sustain the weight of slides. It should be able to sustain the weight or the load of the workpiece as well as the cutting forces. So whenever it has to do all these things, what should be the quality that we are going to expect? So whenever I want to go for see that the machine structure is designed to sustain the static load, then what considerations we have to do? That is called as a adequate stiffness. Okay, so whenever I want to control this static load properly, the machine structure should be designed with a proper type of material, okay, which is having what we can say, whenever we are going to speak about the stiffness, we know it is nothing but the resistance to elastic deformation. There are certain materials which are going to exhibit the property of sufficient or higher elastic deformation. That means it takes a lot of time for elastic deformation. Such materials are being used for the building up of the machine structure of the CNC machines. Proper structural configuration. That means it is necessary that we require to design the machine structure of the CNC in such a way that it should be in a proper way to keep the deformation within permissible limits. That means whatever the deformation possibility is there, whenever the machining operation is done automatically, it should be able to sustain in such a way that whatever the loads, stresses which are developed in the machine structure, it should be able to sustain without changing its shape. That means whenever any CNC machine designed, used for continuously 24 hours and continuously for several years, whatever the structure is there, it should not deform, it should not change its shape and size. So like that we require to design the machine structure. Coming back to the next one, that is the second one, that is the dynamic load. So we need to understand here what is the static load, what is the dynamic load, and what is the thermal load. So whenever dynamic load, why this is caused? This is caused because of the constantly changing forces due to the movement of the various mounted elements. We know very well that whenever the CNC machines are designed in such a way that various movement is going to take place continuously, as well as even these movements are also going to change every moment. For example, the different tools will come, okay, with the indexed turret head, okay, where the speed is going to change, different tools will change, and the cutting force is different for different tools. That is one aspect. And the second aspect is there is a movement of the slides on a slideways, and even the motors are also going to run at different speeds like this. So whenever this is going to happen, there is a continuous change in the cutting force, okay, because different tools will come and different tools will have different cutting forces, and this is responsible for the cause of a dynamic load which can make or which can produce vibrations for the CNC machines. So that is why the machine system vibration is one of the causes due to dynamic load, due to change of continuous cutting forces. It is being caused. So now it can cause what? Vibration. Why the vibration is caused? That is because of the unbalanced rotating parts. That means it is necessary that the balancing of different parts which are mounted at different locations within the structure or within the CNC machines have to have a perfect relative positions with respect to each other. Then we can say that they are being perfectly balanced and they are going to provide the proper functioning in case of a CNC machines. Improper meshing of gears. This is also one of the responsibilities. That means generally we know very well that whenever the transmission of the power is required, we require to use the gearboxes, or we require to use the gear ratios like that. So whenever this is done, even that is also responsible for the production of a dynamic load, or which can cause the vibrations due to continuous meshing or continuous movement of the gears which are present in the CNC machines. Bearing irregularities. Even Suppose if the bearings are not replaced or are not maintained properly in case of a CNC machines, then that is also responsible for creating the vibrations. Interrupted cuts while machining, especially in CNC milling. So interrupted cuts means what? Generally what happens in case of a CNC machine, though we are going to use for continuous operation, we may require to shift from one operation to the another operation by bringing different cutting tools, okay, with the help of a tool magazine, which we are going to discuss in detail in subsequent presentations. So we need to understand here that the cuts are interrupted, means the cuts are not continuous. So different type of operation is done in that also. All these are called as what? Causes of the vibration, and this has to be reduced. So how this can be reduced? That is what we are going to discuss here. Measures to reduce the vibration is reducing the mass of the structure. We require to reduce the mass, means here the weight. That is why the work of a design engineer or the skill of a design engineer plays a very important role as far as the design of a CNC machine structure is concerned, because proper care is taken to see that the mass of the structure, the whole weight of the whatever the CNC machine is there, is going to be cut down, increasing the stiffness of the structure. Just I have told, we require to use certain materials which can provide more stiffness property to the material of the structure. So then only it is possible to consider that your CNC machine is going to function properly. Improving the damping properties means we have to select the material of the machine structure in such a way that it should be able to absorb the vibrations. That absorbing capacity is known as improving the damping properties. So all this is possible if all these measures are taken. That means we require to understand what is the minimum and maximum cutting forces which are produced when a CNC machine is made to run continuously, and what are the causes of vibration and how these vibrations can be reduced by doing what measures. Okay, so that is very, very important. The next very important type of load, that is called as a thermal load. So now we have already discussed static load, dynamic load, and the thermal load. Thermal load, as the name itself indicates, thermal means temperature. So we know one important aspect here, though we have taken care of static load and dynamic load to control to some extent. Apart from that, one more problem is there, or that means one more consideration is there in case of a design of a machine structure of a CNC, that is called as a thermal load, that is related to the temperature. We know very well that whenever we are going to use a motor or a gearbox or any other moving combination or moving mechanisms are there, there is a continuous what happens there is a continuous relative motion which can cause friction and which can in turn cause the heat. So that has to be taken out of the CNC machine structure. You should not see that the machine structure is not going to be overheated, which can lead to the deformation of the whole machine CNC structure. So whenever we want to define the thermal load, it is nothing but setup of thermal gradients. Thermal gradients means what? How the temperature is going to increase in case of a machine structure of a CNC, which within the machine structure caused due to local heat sources leading to the inaccuracies in the machine performance. So what happens whenever this thermal temperature is going to be increased because of a continuous operation of various elements mounted on the machine structure of the CNC. See, these local heat sources, okay, these can lead to the inaccuracies in the machine performance. Finally, the performance of the CNC machines will go down. So for that purpose, let us understand what are the sources which can lead to increase the temperature of the machine structure of the CNC. The first one is the electric motor. So we know very well that whenever the electric motors are being used as a driving element in case of a CNC machines, that heat, it has to be dissipated in a proper way out of the machine structure. Otherwise, it can cause more heat to the machine structure, thereby deforming it. Friction in mechanical drives and gearboxes. So this we know very well. Whenever I want to see that there is some reduction, I want to reduce the speed ratio, in that condition we require to use the gearboxes. So the friction in the mechanical drives and gearboxes can also create a friction and heat in turn. friction in bearings and guideways. Okay, machining processes, even whatever the machining processes which are carried out continuously using CNC machines, they can also cause more friction and more heat. Temperature of surrounding objects, so whatever the surrounding objects are there, even those are getting heated continuously. So these are the sources which can increase the temperature or the thermal load responsible for the deformation of the machine structure. So there are some remedies like external mounting of drives. So how this thermal load can be prevented, that is what we are discussing here. So whatever the thermal load that is coming up into the machine structure of the CNC can be prevented by seeing that external mounting of the drives. That means especially the motors, instead of mounting them within the CNC machine itself, housing itself, even it is possible to see that by changing the design of the CNC machine, those drives or the motors can be made to be mounted outside the CNC machine itself. Removing frictional heat by proper lubrication. This is one of the most important requirements as far as the performance of the CNC machine is concerned. So this is possible by the continuous usage of the coolant or lubricant, especially when a particular machining operation is being carried out. So that means there should be a continuous coolant pumping system made available in the CNC machine itself. Efficient cooling and swarf removal system. So efficient cooling can be achieved by the continuous pumping of the coolants where the machining operation is being carried out by the cutting tool, as well as along with that the proper care is taken to see that swarf removal system, means whatever the metal chips which are being cut during the machining operations have to be removed. Then only there is efficiency in the production. Thermosymmetric designing of the structure. So that is why it is necessary that the design engineers should take utmost care to see that whatever the design of the CNC is there, it has to be thermosymmetric, means whatever the heat that is generated, so that has to be taken out in a symmetric manner. That means it should have a proportionate movement of the heat that is being produced, so that it is possible to see that the structure is going to be maintained without any deformation. So now as you are going to see on the screen here how these effect of loads are there on the machine structure. So I have shown here on the presentation two important types of the figures there. So you are going to see the continuous movement of the tool slides in the left side, as you are going to see, okay, and also you are going to see the movement of the work table, okay. In both the sides you are going to see clearly there, and in the right side you are going to see that there is some stamping operation being carried out by the CNC machines. So whenever this is done, the whole structure of the machine, whatever the structure of the machine is there, it should be designed in such a way that it should be able to sustain all these loads. Then only the efficiency of the CNC machine will be considered. Otherwise it is not possible. Okay, so now let us go to the last presentation, that is in connection with the frequently asked questions expected to come in the examinations. So before we proceed with the frequently asked questions, we need to understand one important thing here, that you require to write all these answers for all these questions in a separate notebook and be ready to appear for the coming IA tests. This is one point. And the second point is study also the 5th semester along with these subjects, because still we have not yet got any confirmation from the board in connection with the examination systems. So now we need to understand. So let us conclude the today's session, okay, by taking into consideration the what we have discussed. So today we have discussed about what are the important parts of the CNC machines with their functions in brief, and along with that, okay, what is the meaning of a machine structure, how the CNC machine has to be designed, and what are the possible loads where utmost care is to be taken to see that these loads are going to be controlled in a proper way. What measures we require to control to see that the static load, dynamic load and the thermal load are going to be prevented or are going to be controlled to a maximum extent by taking into consideration various aspects in connection with the structure or the CNC structure design. So that is what we have already discussed in the today's session. So now let us understand about the what questions are expected to come in the examinations. List the important parts and aspects of CNC machines to be considered in their designing. This is one of the most important question they can ask in the examinations. Here you are going to write enlist only the listing like machine structure, guide and guideways, spindle and spindle bearings, tool monitoring, all that you are going to just enlist. Explain static, dynamic load and thermal load in the machine structure. So you need to write in detail about static load. What is the meaning of a static load? What is the meaning of a dynamic load? What is the meaning of a thermal load? And what are its causes? And how you are going to prevent it in detail you have to write. Explain the design, basic design factors involved in the design of a machine structure. The same answer. That is, you have to write about the static load, you have to write about the dynamic load, and you have to write about the thermal load. So along with this, I am also going to attach one of the important videos which you are supposed to view it, okay, in connection with this, and also you require to study them properly. Okay, with this I am going to finish off the today's presentation. Okay.